Hi there, Erica Bear.
Hello there, Tiffany Burns.
This is a school leader's playbook by connecting through conversation.
So good to see you. What are we chatting about today?
Well, today, and it's so good to see you too. Today, we are chatting about how to stay calm in the middle of those tough conversations. So, last episode, we talked a lot about how we can plan so we can go in clear and ready and confident. But once that conversation starts, things can really start to shift and emotions can take over. You've probably never been in one of those, though, Erica.
Not ever, not ever. I think everything we talk about on in our books and also when we're chatting here are based on the fact that we have not always gotten it right. So there, I will tell just a quick story, if you'll indulge me. When I was,
I was hoping you were going to. I think I can guess what story you're
yeah,
about to share.
yeah. So when I was a student services director, I had the opportunity to sit in some really challenging IEP meetings for students, and there was one in particular where the caregivers were really, really angry. They were really, really angry. They were very frustrated with they were expressing that they were really frustrated and upset with me and with the team and with the schools. And also, there was a lot of fear going on for them with some really difficult things that were happening with their kiddo. And so we're in this meeting and it was on Zoom, thank goodness, but they were super, super angry. And I felt myself starting to get pretty escalated also. And we were having a little bit of a back and forth. And then all of a sudden, I wear one of these Apple Watches that is super helpful in tracking your heart rate and, making sure that everything is good. And all of a sudden, it just starts going bananas. It's like shaking and doing all this stuff. And it's like, would you like us to call 911? Your heart rate is extremely elevated. I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. I've clearly lost control over my emotions and it's having some physiological impacts. And so it was just one of those really loud reminders to, well, first of all, I took my watch off because that was distracting, but also I took some really deep breaths. I grabbed my water that I always have with me and I started reminding myself, you know what? This isn't about me. This has very little to do with me. I'm not angry. Like these folks are doing the very best they can. There's nothing for me to be angry at. I'm really catching their emotions. And
Mhm.
by diving in with my own emotions on top of that, which again weren't mine, I was borrowing those emotions from them. I was escalating both them and myself further and further. And we were in this like spiral of anxiety and fear that was not healthy or happy for anyone. So it was just a really helpful reminder that emotions are contagious and we really have to be aware of it.
Absolutely. Well, and there's so much science behind that. But before we dig into that, the science behind emotions are contagious, inquiring minds, like, were you on mute? So I need to know.
So it started with vibrating
Yeah,
and it was like on silent mode, but apparently there's like an override. If your watch
yeah,
is really nervous, it will start making noise. So I did very quickly put it on mute. I did slip it off my wrist.
yeah,
I did like hit the big dismiss button and it was all fine. I don't think anyone knew except
yeah.
for me. Um, and I did tell my lovely assistant afterwards the story. But other than that, it was just between me and my watch, thank
There you
goodness.
go.
And now, of course, all of you, but this was years ago.
I love it. Well, I mean, it's actually kind of helpful that it was on Zoom
Yeah.
because, you could have all this like private moment, over
Mhm.
here where no one can
Yeah.
see off camera, but it's so real where we just kind of get swept away by the emotions of others. And that's okay, let's dive into that piece of it. And so what we know is that as humans, we all have these mirror neurons, and Eric and I, we like to call these our empathy cells. And so mirror neurons are those part in our brains that when we are observing someone else having a big emotional experience, our mirror neurons actually start to match in our own bodies that same emotional experience in us. So in this case, they were angry, but it sounds like kind of what you were catching was that angst or that anxiety under the anger, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think both. They were definitely experiencing fear and they
Right.
were scared for their kiddo. And that, when I was able to zoom out and remember that that's what it was really about, it was a lot easier for me to get a handle on my own emotions because what they were displaying was a lot of anger and aggression and frustration, right? Those were the emotions we could see. But so often what folks are saying that they're upset about, what they're saying is about they're worried about is not the actual issue. And that was definitely the situation in this case. Yes, they had some things that they were frustrated about, but really they had a kiddo who was in need of some really significant supports and helps, and they were worried about what that meant for both their student and their family, and there was a significant amount of fear and anxiety, and those are such easy emotions to catch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and this is what I mean, we're talking about this with adults, but we share this all the time when we're talking with educators that are talking with students as well. Is that, we see the student have this big emotional outburst, and then it looks a lot like anger, but underneath that is fear, worry, anxiety, and that's so easy as caring, empathetic humans for us to catch. And we start to match their emotions in ourselves. Like I know for me, it's a similar kind of response. Like my hands get really hot and like I start to feel warmer and kind of flushed and I get those kind of nerves in my belly. I can start to feel that like butterfly, yucky feeling. Sometimes it's
I
like
know that one. Yep.
yeah, or like a tornado, where you're just and in your head you're thinking, how am I going to respond to this? What am I going to do? And in this situation, I'm assuming you were like the leader in this meeting, right? You were the person who was kind of in charge.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All the eyes are on me. And here's the thing, like as leaders and as humans and as everyone in the meeting, when we have someone who is, I don't want to say on attack, but when they are throwing out a lot of barbs and they
Yeah.
might be making it very personal and they're kind of throwing everything at you, it is really easy to respond in anger. Like that is very human. We get defensive. We know that it's not justified. We get angry. And as the leader, we are responsible for setting the climate, setting the tone for the space. And our emotions actually become the most contagious. And so it's really incumbent upon us as the leader to make sure that we are setting setting an emotional bar in a place where we want to be because we want folks to catch our emotions. They are the most contagious, so let's help them catch our calm. Let's help them catch our positivity. Let's help them catch our solution oriented focus.
Mhm.
But for sure we want to stay in that place of calm because we have the opportunity to really set that for everyone else in the room.
Yeah. Well, and so when I think that's so important that you're saying, and I think, for me, when I start to feel that, like my mirror neurons start to match what someone else is, I have to just take a minute and take a moment to really intentionally unmatch. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to do blame or shame. I'm not going to be mad at myself for being human and being a connected communicator, right? It's about connection. It means that I'm connected to this person and I'm connected to the outcome. But it's really taking a moment to unmatch. So I like to think a lot about what my feet are doing. I want to make sure that my feet are really planted firmly on the ground. I can tell in a meeting sometimes if I'm sitting down, my foot will start to kind of climb up the side of the table leg, or I'll cross my legs and I'm like, oh, I am not grounded. And I really actually put my feet flat on the ground and just get myself grounded with my feet. Then I start taking those nice, slow, deep breaths. When we get nervous or when we get anxious, we can stop exhaling completely. And so we get all this, carbon dioxide that we're not getting rid of. And because we're having these shallow breaths, our brain is actually thinking that we're under threat or there's tigers, there's something coming at us. So taking those moments to really, plant my feet, get my breathing situated. I don't go anywhere without water, and I think I've talked about this before, even on our podcast. It is absolutely to stay hydrated, but it is 100% a prop as well. Like, it just gives me that extra moment to just take a sip of water, collect my thoughts, and get calm.
Well, and I think the other thing that really matters, and this was something that I saw get away from me in that meeting where I kind of lost track of my own emotions and really started picking up on theirs. We're they when folks are angry, when they're upset, when they're feeling big emotions, they tend to be loud and they tend to talk quickly. They go
Mhm.
loud and fast, right? And all of a sudden, they're talking a million miles a minute. They're talking in a loud or aggressive tone, and we have a tendency to match that. I mean, it's really easy. And then they're talking louder, and then we're talking louder, and then they're louder than us. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, we're like almost in a yelling match, right?
Mhm.
Or an actual yelling match. And that is not positive. So instead, what we really want to do is when they go high and fast, we want to go low and slow and really intentionally slow down the rate of our speech because even as I'm talking now, I can feel my heart rate going down. And it will have the same effect on everyone else. I mean, don't be over the top with it. You don't want it to sound condescending or weird, but by really slowing down our speech, by keeping our volume at a really pleasant level, it's going to bring down the temperature and again help others catch our calm.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we talk too when we're again, when we're talking to educators about this with students, I always think of that kindergarten teacher
Right?
who just is bringing the students in to sit at the rug, and my voice is getting quiet and slow. It reminds me even when my kids were really little, and I would try to get my toddler to calm down, or even the baby, and you're just like, it's okay, it's all right. Obviously, those are not words that we're saying when we're talking with adults because, like you said, like we don't want to sound
Right.
condescending.
Right.
But when we start to talk slower and softer, we actually sound really thoughtful and, just calm. And we're modeling that calm. But the other part, like you said before, is that it isn't just that their emotions are contagious, ours are as well. So if I start to get lower and slower, the tone in the meeting, the tone in the room, the other folks start to, I mean, kind of subconsciously match that same tone. They're matching us, which is our goal, as long
Right.
as we're calm.
Right, exactly. As long as we are projecting emotions that we want others to pick up on, right? And that is always the goal, both with the grown-ups when we're sitting in meetings and with our kids, right? We want to make sure that we are setting that positive tone and that our emotions are worth catching. And sometimes that takes a lot of self-awareness and a lot of like you said, no shame or blame, but just really recognizing when you're starting to go a direction you don't want and then kind of regrounding, on matching and bringing yourself back to a place of calm.
Well, and I think too, we get to do this work all over the country and talk with folks in so many different districts and programs and organizations. And it's always interesting to me when we leave, the thing that kind of stands out to people the most. And for whatever reason, this idea that emotions are contagious, it's been the last few months that I've been talking to folks about this. This is the main thing that they're taking away. I don't know if you're noticing that as well in your in your sessions.
For certain, and I think, it is springtime when we're recording
Yeah.
this. And this is a time of year when folks' emotions can be running a little bit high,
Yeah.
and patience can be running a little bit out for a lot of people or low reserves. And so this is a time when we have to be kind of hyper aware of
Mhm.
our own emotions and the emotions of others because it is something that has a significant impact. And I think when many of us know this, but when we have it pointed out to us, when we're reminded and we're really giving it that conscious attention, we can really kind of sense the difference. And I think it's such a more impactful strategy to make sure we're staying regulated and that we're putting out emotions we want other to catch than to, I don't know, tell someone to be calm or tell someone to calm down. That's never going to work. And so modeling tends to be the better strategy.
All right, so I feel what you're doing, Erica. So I can tell that between the
My
lines. All right,
favorite.
I know. So for our listeners, well, Erica, you were very vulnerable at the beginning, so I'll go ahead and be vulnerable as well. So back when I was a middle school assistant principal. I might have also been a K-8 principal as well. There was one year that I got to do two jobs at once, which was a lot of jobs. It's a lot of jobs. But I was talking with, this was a middle school parent, and she was really upset about something that was happening with her child. And we were on the phone, and all of a sudden she starts, I mean, she just went off and like her voice was slowly getting louder and louder, and then all of a sudden she's screaming at me, and it was one of those where you're holding the phone, actually far away from your ear because it was rather loud. And I'm trying to figure out, what do I say to, I need to end this conversation because there's no way that I can move us to this productive place. And so, I said, I think we're going to have to wrap this conversation up and wait till a time when we're both calm. Now, mind you, I wasn't not calm, but I was trying to put myself in it with her. And oh, wow, that went so horribly. She, um, she actually screamed at me, I am calm, like, and way louder than what I'm doing. I don't want to hurt anybody's ears. And then I mean, I think my jaw probably hit the floor. I've never had someone scream they were calm at me before. And then I can't believe I'm telling all this. She goes, I meditate and I do yoga every day and I am calm. And I mean, she kind of went up and then came back down. And by the time she said, I am calm again, she was. And so I just said, well, that is so good to hear. We finished the conversation. And then I called you and I said, note to self,
Right.
never tell someone to get calm because it
Yeah,
clearly
yeah.
doesn't work. Well,
Right. Also, clues to spouses everywhere. Just not a good idea. Never tell someone to calm down. Never tell someone to calm down. It
oh.
is not helpful. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
No,
difficult.
not at all. But I do think, for some of us, it's easier to catch the emotions of others than others. And I think, as leaders, we definitely know folks in our buildings and in our organizations where a kid might be just having a fine day, and then all of a sudden they're in this person's classroom or they're in this person's space, and all of a sudden the kid goes off. And we all, I think, know those folks that are either really good at picking up emotions or really good at having other people pick up their emotions. And so it's helpful to know how to coach that and how to talk with them about it.
Well, yeah. And there's a lot that I could say about this, but I do want to just really quickly talk about why, as leaders, I mean, we've all heard the expression, right? When the principal sneezes, the whole building catches a cold. That's because as the leader, your emotions are the most contagious. In a classroom, the teacher's emotions are the
Yeah,
most contagious. And so if they're walking in the door and they're feeling all kinds of grump or they're putting out all kinds of negative emotions, that is going to be a very negative environment very quickly. We have a big responsibility as the adults in the space and as the leader for the other adults in the space to make sure that we are showing up with emotions that are going to be productive. And that's not to say, I mean, there are days when we have to fake it a little bit. Like we all have difficult emotions. We all have lives outside of our work, and there are times that's going to be really hard. And if it's to a point where you know you're not going to be able to do it, that might be, a time where it's not a good idea for you to go to work on that particular day. And we're going to give everyone some space. And I've had that conversation with teachers before. Like there's a point where we know we're not going to be able to separate it out enough. The other thing is, like you said, like some of us just pick up emotions a little bit easier than others. And when we have that person who tends to almost trigger or set off other students and all of a sudden like they're doing fine, but when they're working with this person it sends them in a direction that doesn't work. And so part of our coaching is just to talk about, wow, your mirror neurons can really fire, and they're really sending this out. You're really connected to the emotions of others, or you really easily help people connect your emotions to them. And so that doesn't necessarily need to be positive or negative, but let's really think about how we can use that to our advantage as opposed to disadvantage.
absolutely. Well, and pointing that out to folks, being able to
Yeah.
say, in this really caring way, I loved how you said that. You're really connected. You're so connected to the students or the folks around you. You have a really magnetic personality, and I can see how much you really, you really connect and you really get in there with students. And sometimes, that can be such a superpower. And sometimes that can be really, it can work in a more negative way. So being able to point it out in a way that can help them leverage that strength and seeing that as a strength while also being really aware of kind of the other side of that coin, how that can really impact is wildly helpful. I just think about how many times that we've been talking about this with folks and they're going, when they stop to debrief and talk about it, this is something that I hear people say, like, I need that reminder. I needed that reminder to just remember to unmatch, which is, that's all we're doing. All it is unmatching.
That's it. That's it. We say it like it's so easy.
Exactly.
Uh,
I'm glad you said that because I was like,
yeah,
it's not that easy. It's simple.
yeah,
It's not
right.
easy.
No, it takes a lot of awareness and a lot of just um, kind of controlling what we can. And in this world, in this line of work, there's so much that's out of our control.
Mhm.
There's so many things that we can't control. We can't always out control the outcome of a conversation. We can't always control the outcome of a meeting, but we can control how we show up. We can control how we regulate our own emotions. We can control how we respond to the other folks in the space. And so I really encourage, and I'm saying this for myself because we all have these moments, but I think it really is just that important reminder that we have to stay in control of the only thing we really can, which is ourselves, and making sure that we stay as regulated as possible so that we can have a positive impact on the folks around us.
So I want to come back to that and kind of underline and punctuate what you just said, that in these situations, in these tough conversations, the only thing that we can control is ourselves. I'm
That's
just
it.
gonna, the only thing that we can control is ourselves. And that is, in some ways, that's wildly liberating, to be, because when I'm thinking about these tough conversations that I'm either going to find myself in or that I know I'm stepping into, if I think about, you know what, regardless of the outcome, I know that I'm going into this situation, that I'm going to stay calm, I'm going to stay really clear with my purpose. I'm going to stay, true to myself and make sure that I'm saying the things that need to be said. And if I leave this conversation knowing that I did those things, then it was successful. Regardless of what the outcome was, that I was able to be successful in this because I stayed in control of myself. And if we look at it with that being the goal, it's a well, first of all, it's real. Like that's something that's attainable. I can
Right,
actually meet that goal. And I just feel a lot more effective and a lot more secure in myself, really.
right. It's letting go of outcomes that we can influence but can't make happen, because that's a lot of responsibility. The other thing I think about is, when we're in those really difficult conversations and we're delivering some really hard news, we want to be showing up the best way that we can. Again, we're doing everything we can to be kind, show up as our best selves, all of those things that we can control. We can't actually control how the person is going to feel about what we're sharing. We can't actually control how the other person is going to respond to what we're sharing. And so all we can do is the very best we can and know that we have shown up as our best possible self.
I love that. When you were giving the list of the different things that we can control in ourselves, I just want to add in there breathing. We can absolutely
Yeah.
control our breath, and breathing is, I'm sorry, it is wildly underrated. Um,
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of breathing. I do it every day. Every
Right.
day.
But I mean, and of course, and you know what I mean, that
Of course.
intentional
Yeah.
breathing of slowing down my breathing, making sure that I'm really taking that full inhale. And when I do that, my belly goes out, because I'm breathing air in, I'm breathing in that oxygen. And then when I exhale, my belly goes in and I'm exhaling all of that carbon dioxide. And I'm making sure that that my exhale is longer than my inhale. I like to do that breathe in on a count of 4, breathe out on a count of 6, breathe in on a 4, and just really slow that down. And the truth is, before I have these conversations, if I just take 20 seconds, just an extra 20 seconds to slow down my breathing, I go in so much more centered and just so much more in control of myself. And that, I'm going to say that is simple and easy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I read somewhere, I have no idea where, that when you're getting ready for a really difficult meeting, there are two, or anything, there are two things that you can do to make sure your brain is firing on all cylinders, right? So this could be something you're really excited about. This could be something you're really worried about. This could be just something that's difficult. And there are two things: breathe deeply, breathe, take those deep breaths, fully exhale, and make sure you drink at least 8 ounces of water right beforehand. So that is my little tip of the day. Water and breath will make your brain work way better, and we can all use help. So,
I love that. I was just talking with my university students. They're in practicum right now, and some of them are doing student teaching. And I said, as a principal, I had lots of opportunities to talk with students that were really escalated. And when students are very, very escalated, I was the person that was called, to come in and help de-escalate. And I could always tell the students whose teachers did regular breathing exercises, that like mindful breathing with them, because when I'd come by, I'd say as few words as possible and then just start to breathe. And the kids who were doing that regular, consistent breathing with their classrooms or at home with their families, they just did it with me and they got calm so much faster. And so it's to me, it's about doing it all the time, like having that be a regular, consistent practice so that when we do need it, when we are really escalated, it's so much easier.
yeah, awesome. Well, I would love to connect it. This was a super fun conversation. What are you going to walk away with?
Oh, Erica. Emotions are contagious, and so let's put out the emotions that we want others to catch.
Absolutely. And for me, my biggest takeaway, or what I hope folks will leave thinking about, is this idea that we only have control over limited things in our universe and in our work. And so make sure that you are doing all you can to control what you can.
Good talk, Erica Bear.
Good talk, Tiffany Burns.